All right, let's celebrate productivity, shall we? Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly Navel-Gazing, where I talk about all the videos I made last week and all the books I read last week and all the videos I plan to make this week and all the books I plan to read this week and all the other stuff that kind of comes up from time to time. And let's get right into it and talk about books that I read last week, if I can still remember which ones those were, because brain fog, me not good. Something like that. All right. So, what did I read last week? I did finish Elantris. I think I already mentioned that in last week's video, but maybe not. And then I did read Dominion by Tom Holland, which is a non-fiction book about Christianity and how it's basically everywhere, which, good book. Not the perfect book. I have some criticisms of it. I don't think it's worth making an extra video on it, but certainly talking about the assembled hordes of Asia is maybe a phrase you shouldn't write in the 21st century. That kind of doesn't go down well nowadays, I would argue, unless you're obviously quoting Herodotus, which this was about. But as far as I know, it's not an actual direct quote, but someone decided to use those phrases. So that's like the main issue with that book, is that it the writer Tom Holland does go into prose style overdrive from time to time, and that doesn't sometimes cause issues. Anyway, beyond that, pretty solid book. If you want to find out how heavily, say, Christian ideas, Christian theology, and so forth impacted even places that are not actually Christian or are, you know, basically very much built into the structure of our society, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. So in that regard, pretty solid book. What else did I read? Well, I did read The Sunken Land Begins to Rise Again by M. John Harrison, and I did have a lot of fun is probably the wrong word, but I did very much enjoy the book. It's a really, really, really good book, and you should read it if you feel like getting depressed, which is kind of what all of this is about, right? So I did read that, and I did, in fact, as I said, have enjoyed. I think it's a really, really good book. And then I did reread Cahokia Jazz by Francis Spofford, and I did have a lot of fun with it because it is, once again, a really good book, and that's definitely, worthwhile. And you should definitely go and read it. Then I did finish reading Feeding the Flock by Terrell Givens, a book on Mormon ecclesiology. I can't say that. Ecclesiology, that's the word. It's the theory of like why you have a church and how you organize a church and stuff like that. It's a really important book if you want to make a video about Mormonism. Or so I think. So that's why I finished it. It's okay. Don't get me wrong. It's not exactly fun. Givens is certainly a good writer when it comes to explaining these kind of things, but it's still theory about like why church. And that has its drawbacks. And then I did decide to really, really hurt myself by rereading the entirety of the Book of Mormon in one go yesterday. I woke up way too early for reasons and couldn't go back to sleep, and so I started at like 7-ish in the morning and hammered through the entire book. I can't recommend that. Honestly, don't. So that's something I did, and now today I did reread the Doctrine and Covenants and The Pearl of Great Price, which are, of course, the other two parts of Mormon scripture beyond, of course, the King James Bible. And those are also not exactly fun, but they're not supposed to be fun, right? They're a list of revelations by Joseph Smith that are sort of like organize the church, and a couple of other translations, and that word does do a lot of heavy lifting here, that Joseph Smith decided to write down. So it's Mormon time again. That's what I read last week. That's more than it may sound, I think. And some of it was really good, so that's fine. What am I planning to read this week? Well, I don't know. So I feel that I am finally completely done with Mormon research. I may have to look up individual dates and stuff like that while recording the videos, but there's gonna be no more books to read on that subject, so we're done with that. Which means I have to read something else. I could go and read Kirinia, the second Chaga book by Ian MacDonald, and that will certainly happen sooner or later, because, I want to continue the Ian MacDonald thing. I could read something else. I don't want to start The Final Empire until I've at least recorded my thoughts on Elantris, so I can move on to the next sort of book and not confuse my thoughts. So maybe it's time to read something else that's out there. There's certainly The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, which I'm definitely going to read sooner or later. So there's that. Maybe something else. Who knows? If you think there's something I really, really, really should read that does not necessarily take up too much time, because I need to sort of like get back to the Sanderson stuff at some point, and I want to, push it ahead too much, which is why I'm not going to read. I'm probably not going to read the Last King of Ostenard books right now because, well, they're pretty fucking long. Is exactly that. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we'll see. So that's reading plans for this week. I have no idea, is what I'm saying. Also, I'll be traveling a bit, so I don't know how much time I'll have for reading. But what about videos, you say? Well, I made 3 videos. That's more than I usually make in a week these days, so hooray for me doing that. I did make a video on The Sunken Land Begins to Rise Again, and I made a video on Cahokia Jazz, and right this morning it got a comment from author Francis Bufford himself, and I really, really appreciated that. That was really nice. Makes me feel appreciated, and yeah, I'd be lying if I wouldn't, enjoy that. So very nice, super good. Thank you. And then I made a video on Palo Alto by Malcolm Harris, which is a nonfiction book that you should definitely go and read. It's a really good book. Those were the 3 videos. I also did do morning sprints, writing and productivity sprints on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Monday, it didn't work. And this morning, it also didn't work. Maybe Restream just really hates Mondays. Could be. I wouldn't, I understand it, but it's still kind of frustrating because I still got up at way too early to do the sprints, and then it just didn't work. It started the stream on Restream, and then it didn't connect. Apparently, didn't manage to connect to YouTube, so the stream didn't start on YouTube. And once again, I wouldn't know why. It's all weird. What you're gonna do, right? So that's where we are. I'll try to do sprints tomorrow and on Friday. I won't be able to do sprints in the morning on Wednesday or Thursday because I'll be traveling. So that's what I did last week. Let's talk about videos for this week. Well, we'll see. As I said, I'll be visiting friends and going to a concert of very, very old band Jethro Tull, which is obviously a brilliant band, so I'm very much excited to see them again. Last time I saw Jethro Tull, or what passes for Jethro Tull these days, I saw at the Herodion, which is a Roman amphitheater in Athens. That was in 2019. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing them, but, it means I won't be at home in the morning on Wednesday and Thursday because I have to travel to a different part of Germany, and that's just what happens. So what kind of videos will I do beside that? I will try to make at least 1 video, maybe 2 videos, maybe 3 videos, we'll see. Definitely one big part is me going to record bits and pieces for that Mormonism video to get it out of the way. As I said, right now, I feel like I've done all the reading I can possibly do. I mean, obviously there's way more to read, but it won't change my opinions at this point. I just need to get it done. And we'll see how much of that I can get done today and tomorrow before I leave for the concert thing. So I can't promise anything, but I'll try to record at least some parts. And then there's probably other videos. If I manage to read Kirinya, then I'll probably do a video on Kirinya this week. If I read something else and I have thoughts on it, then maybe I'll manage to do that. Beyond that, I think there will be I feel like I have to make a video on the Cormac McCarthy situation. There's a Vanity Fair article out there. If you have way too much time, you can read it. The short is that Cormac McCarthy had a relationship with an underage girl, and there's all kinds of other stuff connected to that. It's bad. But maybe not just in the way that you think it's bad, so I feel it's worth talking about, especially since I made videos on The Passenger and Stella Maris. Unlike, say, the Neil Gaiman situation, where I have never made a video on anything Neil Gaiman wrote, this time I don't think, I did make a video on one Neil Gaiman book. I just forgot that I talked about his retellings of Norse mythology. Interesting. The brain. It's not working. But with Cormac McCarthy, I feel the need to talk about it, so I'll probably make a video on that. You have to, kinda, I guess. we'll see if something else comes up. Maybe, I'm still thinking about that, maybe I'll have to make a video on the whole situation with these channel memberships. That's certainly something that may come up. And of course, there will be the monthly live stream, the monthly Marxist Malcontent on Saturday. I'll do my best to actually get the fucking stream working on Saturday, and I hope it won't, die on me or anything of the sorts. Fingers crossed, but if so, I hope to see you all there. It's been a while, and the last month has certainly been interesting in all kinds of ways, so yeah, we'll see. Live stream on Saturday. Hope to see you there. That's the plans for this week. Beyond that, let's talk a bit about thoughts and brains and or lack of brains and whatnot, and where all of this is going. So yeah, as I said, I've been mentioning that the fact that I've been doing these live streams in the morning, and they work really well for me. I really, really appreciate anyone who's showing up. Apparently, some of you are watching these later when you wake up. I also very much appreciate that. It's really cool. Thank you very much. It also helps me to get stuff done. I've talked about this before, and I'm going somewhere with this. I've talked about this before. My situation is obviously not always the best, both when it comes to mental health in general, and obviously also all the other stuff. Like I've had struggles with all kinds of mental health issues, somewhere between burnout, depression, and whatnot. I have no idea, but it certainly left me in a position where I was very much unable to do any sort of jobs that take a lot of attention and brain power. On the other hand, what with me being blind, it's kind of difficult to do the kind of jobs you could do in these kind of situations, stock shelves at a supermarket or anything of that sort, where you could just get some money and restabilize your life. I can't do those because, supermarkets don't necessarily want blind people restocking their shelves for reasons. Although I would argue it could make your shopping experience much more entertaining and adventurous, but what you gonna do? So that leaves me in one of those weird situations where I can actually get up in the morning and do live streams from 8 to 10 a.m., which, cool, I guess. But it also leaves me in a place where I have to sort of figure out how to sort of structure my day, because there's no job, there's no, at the moment, no university or anything else that kind of forces me to be anywhere at any point in time. And if you are like me and you have, ADHD, it's very easy to get distracted. And if you are like me and, that whole exhaustion, depression, burnout, whatever hole, it's also very easy to just stay in bed. And those are not necessarily good things in the long run. So what I'm trying to do at the moment in that regard is obviously trying to build myself a structure that works until I find some other way of, not spending my time, but at least, what to do, right? So that's partly why I'm doing these streams in the morning, to get out of bed, get something done, work through, try out stuff, which is why I'm currently trying to write whatever this will be, maybe a novel, maybe a novella, who knows. It's going slowly, and I've written something like 3,000, 4,000 words, I guess. I'm trying to not do word counts all the time because I feel they will just pressure me more. So, but there we are. So these are interesting things I'm trying to do, and then I go to the gym and do that to keep a daily structure in some way or form. And then the rest of the day is basically me hanging out, reading, and hoping I'll get to the Mormonism video, sort of, mostly. But that's obviously not necessarily sustainable in the long run, because on the, at the moment, it kind of works. I'm getting some unemployment money and stuff like that. So I'm not starving, but it's obviously also not exactly what you might call a lot of money. It gets very tight at the end of the month. So the phase I'm currently in is me doing all these things in the hopes that it'll give me some sort of structure that I can then build off in either finding some kind of job or finding some other way of, turning this whole whatever it is I'm doing at the moment into something that occupies enough time and money to make this working in some way or form. Obviously, the chances of doing this full-time as a video guy is that chance is basically non-existent. But, so there's a layer of or me having to take all of what I'm doing at the moment seriously in a way. And that's difficult, right? I've struggled with that ever since I made the first YouTube video, because it doesn't feel like a job. And obviously, a lot of booktube kind of relies on everyone pretending that this is not a job, this is just something we do for fun as a hobby, no matter who watches or whatever. Which, yeah. But on the other hand, we're spending time and money on all of this, right? You read books, you buy books, you record videos, some of you edit videos, that kind of stuff. So there is a level of professionalism in here somewhere that we're obviously not allowed to show, but it certainly has to happen somewhere on the back end, at least if you keep doing this for the longer time, right? And I feel I'm certainly in that situation at the moment where, with, a daily schedule of like 2-hour sprints in the morning, trying to record more videos, there is a level of professionalism creeping in, whether I want to or not. And on the one hand, I think that's really helpful because it forces me to sort of like relearn or get used to a minimum of pressure, which is certainly something that I need to get sort of at least back to understand, not folding the first second this happens, but it obviously also kind of has to kind of contrast or overcome this whole idea of this is just fun, right? There's no pressure whatsoever, and that's certainly something I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do that. And so yeah, in that regard, I feel the streams in the morning have certainly helped. They are very different from the monthly streams where I drink beer and we get like somewhat rowdy from time to time. These are much more relaxed, I guess, in that regard, much more sober. And that works. And this is kind of where the whole channel membership thing also kind of comes in, right? Because I got tapped by YouTube to take part in their channel membership bootcamp, where they talk about how to use channel memberships, which is something they really want to do. And you go to these weekly sessions where you get explanations and stuff. And obviously there's a certain pressure to finally, do them, start them, install them, whatever you want to call it, on your own channel, which I haven't done so far because brain and me having to figure out how to do that. But once again, this is also something that kind of folds into the into this level of professionalism, or not professional, but taking YouTube as a significant time and money sink for me, taking it seriously, looking at how can I do this better in titles, thumbnails. I know there's end cards, title cards, all of this other stuff that YouTube tries to that YouTubers can do and maybe work or don't. And I feel I should probably figure this shit out to some degree, or figure out which of these things I can't actually do because of accessibility issues. Right now, YouTube, as I said, is kind of fucked, and a lot of times buttons don't work because I don't know. It's highly frustrating. But it's certainly something I need to figure out or get more professional with, and maybe setting up channel memberships is one step of that process of taking it seriously. Not necessarily. I'm not saying you should then go and give me money on that as well, but every dollar or euro or whatever I make through YouTube things per month does, not make me rich, but certainly allow me to maybe pay off my debts a bit quicker, and or have money for at least a book more or whatever at the end of the month, which is always nice. So there is sort of two things there. The one thing is just getting more money, but that's certainly not the whole thing. The other thing is using these technologies and taking them seriously as what they are, because I think it's easy, or it makes it easier for YouTube and other social media platforms to exploit us as the people that produce the content, actually. If they can keep us believing that we're just doing this for fun and as a hobby, because that's basically, when we don't expect anything out of it. And so there's a shift in mindset I'm trying to come to terms with, and trying to kind of figure out how I can do this and remain true to myself. There's a question of integrity here that I feel most people in these workshops don't necessarily grapple with. But then again, I talk about how capitalism sucks all the time, so asking for money feels doubly wrong to me, I guess. So that's certainly something I have to figure out. So maybe I'll make a video on that, discussing the pros and cons if I decide to allow channel memberships. If I do so, I'll still, the same thing will apply as does with the Patreon, which means I don't want to take any form of actual YouTube content and keep it behind a paywall. That's not something I want to do, because I want to keep this stuff free for everyone, because not everyone has money, and that's important to me. So I'll see if I can come up with something there, and if there's enough thought process going on, I'll try to put that in that kind of video. And finally, there's a poll down there in the community tab, which you should go to. It is about, well, the whatever mess, because it's not necessarily Drizzt mess, it may be something else. I've come up with like 4 options for a series of 13 books I'll be reading between Christmas or Sol Invictus and Epiphany, which is the 6th of January, which is usually what you might call these 13 days or 12 days of Christmas in that one regard, or whatever you want to call it, right? And there's 4 options there. One is just to continue with the Drizzt stuff. The next option is to read 13 Redwall books. If you're into really furry animals killing each other with medieval weaponry, that's the kind of children's books you might want to read, and that's the children's books you might want me to read. And then there's, of course, the option of talking about Left Behind, which is Christian apocalypse fiction, which apparently is really big. I'm not an evangelical Christian, so I just know from the outside that it sold a shit ton of books in evangelical and Christian right circles. And it's about what happens if the rapture comes and some people are left behind. The other options are, of course, the final option is, of course, talking about Karl May books, those being Westerns and Easterns, as they are sometimes called, or whatever you want to call it. Adventure novels written in the 19th century that have had a huge and oversized impact on Germany. Period. Those are the 4 options. The poll will run until the post Wind and Truth weekend, the Monday after Wind and Truth, which I guess is the 9th of December. And then I'll look at the results and do whatever it takes to get you 13 videos about fun things, despite having all the centers and shit to go going on as well. But that's the plans. So please vote down in the poll for these books. Let me know what you think about whatever. Tell me what you did last week. Tell me what you plan to read this week. Tell me whatever else comes in your mind and I'll be talking about something, hopefully during this week. Otherwise, I'll be just drinking beer and listening to Jethro Tull, which is obviously the far superior way of spending your time. But all of that said, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for all of you watching videos, commenting, hanging out in these morning sprints. Just generally, thanks for sticking with me, being with me. I appreciate that. Like, subscribe, comment, do the things. I'll see you very soon. And until then, thanks and cheers.